This is Fat to Fierce. Welcome to the Confidence Chronicles. I'm your host, Amy English. Join me on this empowering adventure towards a healthier relationship with food, body, and self, one delicious bite at a time. Hello. Welcome back to the Confidence Chronicles. I hope you're having a great week so far. And hey, if you're new here, this podcast is where we talk about all sides of taking care of yourself. So that includes the messy middle, which is a real part of taking care of yourself, okay? The mental shifts, which can be so powerful. The days where you're incredibly proud of yourself and want to celebrate. And even the days where you want to throw in the towel or throw your scale out the window. Okay. So we're here for all of it. And I'm really glad that you're here. All right. So if you've been here before, you may have heard me talk about this. I'm going to get into it again today. The last 6 months of 2024, I gained 20 pounds. All right. But hear me out, because I'm going to talk about this in a different way today. Stay with me, all right? But here we are. It's August of 2025, and I'm still up those same 20 pounds, all right? And despite my best efforts, those 20 pounds have not budged, all right? And there's a lot that I've done. I mean, I have worked with a dietitian. I have increased my fiber, which I'm actually very proud of. Okay. I mean, I'm continuing with my water intake, making sure I get appropriate sleep. I'm exercising more, going to the gym. I started doing more weight training. I even gave up refined and processed sugar for the month of July. Like, the weight has just not budged. And before I get into this, I want to share why it's so important for me to remove these 20 pounds, okay? And that is because for me, these 20 pounds start to impact my body in some negative ways, meaning specifically when it comes to my lab work, so my blood work, it starts to impact my A1C, and it starts to impact my cholesterol and my insulin. And just for a little bit of reference, so I was gestational diabetic with both of my pregnancies. And I've worked very hard over the years to keep I mean, that's one of the reasons I have focused on my weight, specifically since both my kids were born, right? Was because of that and monitoring my, my blood sugars and my A1C and all that, just to keep myself in that healthy range. So I've noticed, with the increase of these 20 pounds, those levels have started to become impacted, right? So it's important for me personally to remove these 20 pounds. I always say to my husband, these 20 pounds, these are kind of like me entering the danger zone. And I know that sounds really dramatic, but it kind of is, right? Because it's where things start to go awry. And so it's important for me to remove these 20 pounds. Where I go beyond those 20 pounds, I haven't even thought about that. I'm not even there at this point. For me right now, it is just about, removing these 20 pounds and getting my numbers back to where they were before these 20 pounds came on. Okay. So that's just a little bit of why. And also, and I've shared this before too, I have a lot of clothes that I can't wear right now because they're too tight, right? Like I have some jeans that I really love. Like, they're my favorite jeans, and they're just so tight. I mean, I can button them, but they are not comfortable. Would not recommend, right? I won't wear them. So I'd like to be able to wear those again too. And that's just kind of like, from a clothing perspective, that would be nice. But the primary reason is because I want to get my numbers back in that normal range for me. And so here we are. It's now August, and these 20 pounds haven't budged. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. Okay. It is frustrating. All right. And that is exactly that's what I want to talk about today. Okay. That is exactly what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the frustration because I think it's important. And also with that, I want to talk about the mindset shift. Okay. Talking about mindset shifts. I want to talk about the shift that's keeping me going, even while the frustration of this is sitting in the passenger seat. Okay. And let me just take that for a second because really important to note what I just said. The frustration is sitting in the passenger seat. It's not behind the wheel. Okay. It's not driving the vehicle. I'm behind the wheel. The frustration is just close by in the driver's or in the passenger seat. Sorry. And I think that is just so important because I know in the past, for me anyway, frustration was behind the wheel. Okay. So it's just really interesting now. Yes, it's still there. It's still part of this, but it's not driving the vehicle. Okay. And I just think that's really important to call out. And I think that for anybody who's ever been on a weight loss journey before, you probably know this feeling. Okay? You step on the scale thinking you'll see a reward for your hard work, right? You'll see something. You'll see some movement. And instead, like the same number just stares back at you or a higher number stares back at you, right? And it's so easy to think you're the only one. It's just you, right? Like it's only you who's struggling in this way. And especially when social media is flooded with all the before and after pictures and all the success stories, and you start to think, what is wrong with me? Why is it working for all these other people and not for me? That is why I share these stories. Okay. That is why I talk about this. That is why we talk about the messy middle and all of it, because you're not alone in this and neither am I. Like I'm in it right now. I am going through it. This is the first time it has been this challenging for me to remove any weight. I've often said before throughout the time on this, actually throughout the time I've been coaching, that I've been very good at weight loss, right? Like I've considered myself an expert at weight loss. Like I think a lot of us can say that, right? We know how to lose weight. It was always keeping it off that was the struggle, right? Because the weight would start to come back when our old habits would emerge, right? Reemerge. And this has been throwing me for a loop because I'm doing all the things that typically have worked in the past and they're not working. And it's just like, what is going on? And so yeah, it can absolutely be frustrating, especially when you're seeing all these amazing success stories. And that's a tough one because you absolutely want to celebrate folks. Like I want to cheer people on, right? And be happy for them and excited for them. And like, that's amazing because you know how good it feels, right? But then there's that silent kind of like, what's going on with me? What's wrong with me? Right? I think that's very real. And that is why I want to talk about this because keep in mind, and this is really important, there is a small percentage of people sharing their stories out there. Okay. Very small percentage. And there's an even smaller percentage of them that are like sharing the bumpy roads, right? Most people are sharing their success stories. They're not sharing the behind the scenes, the bumps along the road, the times when they fall, when it's really hard to get back up, all that other stuff. You don't see a lot of that, okay? People are always sharing like the highs. I think it's important to share the lows too. And so anyway, so I wanted to talk about frustration and more specifically acknowledging the frustration that comes along with this in the passenger seat, okay? Acknowledging the frustration, but without letting it consume you, okay? And how to keep showing up when the progress isn't necessarily obvious, okay? Because remember, when we're only relying on the scale, we're only seeing one part of the story. So we're going to get into that a little bit as well, all right? And so again, let me just reiterate, because this is really important. Frustration maybe, okay, is a normal part of this process. Like, what if we just accept that frustration is part of it? And maybe frustration is not a sign that something is wrong, okay? Maybe it can be a sign that you care. That's just a different way of looking at the frustration, one that I think can be helpful, okay? And I think that the problem is old diet mentality. So, like the toxic part of diet mentality, because remember, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to lose weight or take care of yourself if that's the route that you want to go. Okay. I firmly believe that everybody has to decide what they want to do for themselves. The key is that you're doing it in a way that feels good and you're being kind and compassionate towards yourself. Okay. But here's the thing. Old toxic diet mentality kind of taught us to interpret frustration as failure, right? It says something's wrong with me, or I'm lazy, or clearly I'm never going to figure this out, right? Like, what did I always used to say? One of my old lines was, I'm just destined to be fat forever. Like, I can't do this. Nothing's working. Okay. And in the past, for me specifically, frustration would mean that I'd go to extremes. Okay. I'd go one of two ways. I would either go the extreme route of, doubling up my workouts. I mean, there were times I'd go to the gym twice in a day. I think I've shared the story where I hurt myself. Like I tripped over the shipping rope at a workout and sprained my ankle and continued working out. Like it was ridiculous. Anyway, so it was like the extreme workouts, cutting my calories, being very restrictive with food, that kind of obsessive behavior. Okay. Or the other type of extreme would be that I would just throw my hands up and quit. F this, done with this, right? Forget it. Not going to bother anymore. So that's what past me would do when I got frustrated. I would either double down, get crazy, or just completely give up. But now, present time, current me, I have learned to stop and ask, to stop and check in with myself. This is another example of using the pause, okay? Pausing and asking this question. Is this frustration? Am I going to let this frustration propel me forward? Like, am I going to let this frustration move me forward? Or am I going to let it feed my self-sabotage? Am I going to let it feed my extremes? Because however I answer that question decides what I do next. Okay. And so that's the difference of letting frustration mean something's wrong versus being a sign that you care. Okay. So looking at like the feeling of frustration is like, okay, how do I want to use this, the energy behind this frustration? Do I want to use this to fuel me to take a step in the direction I want to go, or to go into a direction that I know is only going to lead to a disastrous outcome? Because let's face it, extremes, at least for me, always typically led to a disastrous outcome. But at the end of the day, I think this is the thing. We really don't have to sugarcoat it. Okay. We can simply say, yeah, I'm annoyed. I'm frustrated that I'm still carrying these extra 20 pounds. It's not fun. I can say that and I can feel the frustration of that and still not let that dictate my choices going into the extreme negative spot. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can just let that be what it is. Like, yes, this is frustrating. And also, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to keep showing up for myself, because even though it's frustrating that these 20 pounds are hanging around and I can't wear my favorite jeans and my A1C is going up, even though that is happening right now. And yeah, that worries me. The A1C, not so much the jeans. Okay. Let's be real. But like, even though that's happening and that's frustrating, I still want to take the best care of myself. Like, that's not a reason for me to like throw in the towel or even take a sledgehammer to the scale, which, yes, we have done in the past. So at the end of the day, what this really is allowing ourselves to feel frustrated. Just letting it be what it is. Letting ourselves feel annoyed and being okay with that. It's kind of like letting yourself feel bored, as opposed to like thinking you need to go grab a snack because, or like do something like fill that space. This is with the example of bored. And I know I've shared this before, but whatever. It's just another example that's popping up in my mind right now. Over the summer, my kids would say, mainly my son, my daughter doesn't really say this, but Ryan would say this: I'm so bored. I'm so bored. Mom, I'm so bored. And I would always say to him, good, be bored. Allow yourself to feel bored. And of course, he would roll his eyes at me. But I'm like, Ryan, listen, there are always going to be times in your life when you're going to feel bored. You're not going to be entertained every minute of every waking hour. Accept it. Part of the problem is that people don't like to feel bored. Like, feeling bored is just a normal part of life. Like, there are going to be times when you feel bored. There's going to be times when you feel bored. There's going to be times when you're not bored. Like, just accept it. And I think frustration and like feeling annoyed and stuff like that it like fits in with that, right? There are going to be times when we're frustrated with our own journeys. Can we just like let it be and accept that, and not let it mean that we have screwed up or that it's a problem or anything like that, and we have to kind of like reinvent the wheel or throw in the towel and give up and whatever, right? Like, just, okay, yes, I recognize that I'm feeling frustrated. Okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to do here? How am I going to let this move me to the next step, right? Or can I just let this be for just a moment before I take that next step, right? Don't necessarily have to go backward, don't necessarily have to go forward. Can I just let myself be for a moment and maybe just catch my breath? I think that's another important part of it too. Okay. All right. So what I want to share next is having a new perspective. Okay. So in the midst of this frustration, okay, this frustration for being the same weight for the last 8 months, for holding on to these extra 20 pounds, because in the past, I would have called it a failure that I hadn't lost these 20 pounds, right? But here's the thing. And yes, I'm going to talk about the wins in this. Okay. So earlier I had mentioned, how to keep showing up when the progress isn't obvious. Okay. Specifically meaning when it's not showing up on the scale. Here's where we're going to talk about the progress that isn't obvious. Okay. These are new ways of looking at what's going on, the wins that we find outside of the scale. This is incredibly important, okay? So, past me, Amy of the past, oh my God, I like got the image of Scrooge in my head just now, but Amy of the past would have considered this a failure, that I have kept these 20 pounds on for the last 8 months, right? That I haven't lost a pound. And present day, current Amy says this: wow, that's 8 months that I've maintained this weight. I haven't added any more. It's literally stayed the same. That's kind of amazing, because listen, if you've had an experience like mine in the past, where like, and I listen, I know this is the case for a lot of people because I've talked to a lot of women in my career, okay, where you lose a significant amount of weight, maybe 50 or even 100 pounds, and then the diet ends or the program ends. You're left to your own devices and you gain all that back plus some, okay? I've been there before, right? A lot of us have, okay? So, quite honestly, the fact that I gained 20 pounds, but for this entire year so far, I have maintained that and not gained more. That's huge. That's a win. All right. It's a different way of looking at this. Okay. Yes, I can still be frustrated that I haven't lost it, but also I can share the space with the fact that I'm proud of the fact. Wait, with the fact that I'm proud of the fact? I don't, whatever. Okay. Let me not like edit my words here. I can share the space with the fact that I have maintained that and not increased the weight more. Okay. That's something to be proud of. And also, it's 8 months of keeping my habits alive. All the things I'm doing, man, it's a lot, right? The workouts, the water, the sleep. That is this entire year of 2025. And I mean, even before that, but like, let's just call it, for this year of holding steady in a world where most people regain. And let's just, for just a second, listen, 2025 has been pure chaos, okay? Wherever you fall on the political spectrum, all right, it has been, breaking news after breaking news. It's been stressful for most of us, okay? I know in the past I would have been stress eating like crazy with everything that's been going on. I haven't been. And just like all the disasters happening, like just all the things going on, right? And like I don't stress eat anymore. That's huge. I don't binge eat any of that, right? That all of that. So, I think maintenance gets such a bad rap in diet culture, but it's actually the unsung hero of long-term health. Like I think it's kind of the lifestyle change, okay? Being able to maintain not just your weight, but all of these things, all of these habits, the fiber intake, right? The protein, the eating in a really healthy and balanced way. All of that, none of that has changed even while, I'm quote unquote struggling with these 20 pounds, right? So all of that I'm still doing. And there's one other thing that I tend to overlook. My husband's always really good about reminding me of this because I sometimes do forget it, especially when I'm like in the midst of, the frustration of these pounds not budging. I am still 90 pounds lighter than my highest recorded weight of all time. Okay. That's not a small thing. That is over a decade actually, of keeping the bulk of my weight off. And I can promise you this, the old version of me would have thought that was impossible. So even with this 20-pound gain, I am still worlds away from where I started. And that is worth acknowledging. And I'm sharing this. Here's what I like to do. I like to share stories. And I sometimes do this in coaching sessions too, when I'm one-on-one with a client, because while I'm sharing like some of the personal stuff, it'll help people think of their own stories. Like, so my hope is that in me sharing some of this, my personal wins outside of the scale, is that maybe it's helping you think of some of your personal wins outside of the scale. Okay. Because I guarantee you have them. Okay. We all do. There are always wins beyond the scale. Doesn't mean we have to throw away our scale or not step on our scale, because I don't think the scale is evil. I don't think the scale is bad. I don't think the scale should be ignored. I think the scale can be a really helpful tool to give us data. I do acknowledge that the scale has a lot of history and trauma and stories attached to it, for sure. And not the scale specifically, but the number, the weight, right? Our weight. There can be a lot of trauma attached to that. I understand that, absolutely. But I think we can work to heal that and use the scale in a really helpful and powerful way. So I'm not anti-scale at all. In fact, I like to help people learn to use the scale in a way that feels good for them if they want to go that route. I'll never force anybody to use the scale. Okay, that was a side note that I didn't realize I was going to share. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, so I think my point in that is that I think it is equally as important to have those non-scale wins as well. Okay. And another one is not giving up. All right. So when I think about the fact that we are now in August, and so it's been really since the end of last year that I hired my first dietitian in November. So it's been a minute that I've really been extra focused on this. I continue to explore and experiment. And I recently met with a new doctor for hormone testing because I have a sneaking suspicion that that's probably a big part of this. Okay. Yes. I have faced that fact. I mean, we'll see where it goes, but I did have a whole bunch of hormone testing done at the end of last week. So that could absolutely be impacting. And that was actually at the suggestion of my dietitian. She was like, listen, we have tried so many things. I'm 50. All right. Like it's very possible that this could be like a hormonal thing. Like who knows? Anyway, the point is I am looking at this from a place of curiosity and compassion, right? Which is very different from the past, which was filled with criticism and contempt and always led to me throwing in the towel. Okay. And hey, listen, speaking of throwing in the towel, I want to share a quick client story with you because this is super powerful. So one of my clients recently lost 50 pounds. Okay. And then she hit a plateau. And this is the first time in her life that she hasn't thrown in the towel when the scale stopped moving. And so instead of quitting on herself, she's getting curious. She started changing things up. She's experimenting, seeing what her body is responding to, right? And her biggest takeaway through all of this is she wants to see herself get to the other side of this plateau. Not just for the number on the scale, but because she's proud of how she's showing up for herself. I had goosebumps when she shared this with me because that's when it's so much more than losing weight. It's about having your own back no matter what the scale says or how quickly the pounds drop. And I just wanted to share that because it was so incredibly powerful. And the third win, okay, is care over shame. All right. So back to me cutting out sugar in July. All right. I did the whole month, 0 refined sugar. And as I mentioned, there was no change on the scale. Now, again, the old Amy, I keep referring to the old Amy in this episode, but old me would have said, why bother? What was the point of that? Give me all the sugar. But now, I just see it as data. Okay. Maybe sugar wasn't the thing for me. So I'm looking at other possibilities. Maybe it's hormones. Who knows? Right. That's care over shame. Shame says you failed, you screwed up or whatever, it didn't work. Oh, what's wrong with you? Blah, blah, blah. Care says, all right, maybe that wasn't it. Maybe it wasn't the sugar. It was funny. My dietitian was like, well, Amy, you really don't eat that much sugar. So it's like, yeah, maybe it didn't have that much of an impact. And I was like, I know, but I really thought it was going to move the needle. It didn't. Anyway, but Care says, okay, that didn't work the way we expected it. Let's now take the next step. Let me book an appointment with this new doctor. And oh my goodness, I love her so much. I'm so happy. There is something so special about sitting down with a doctor who listens without judgment and who doesn't give you the same old rundown about just eat less, exercise more, make lifestyle changes. Oh my gosh. No, it was actually a really great appointment. And I was really helpful for her guidance. And I'm super curious to see what happens when I get my results and we talk about them. Anyway, so I'm always and it was hard because the last this was a gynecologist that I went to see. And the last gynecologist I went to see was not a positive experience because she was really pushing hormone replacement therapy. And that is something that I am not comfortable with, having been a breast cancer survivor, specifically an estrogen sensitive breast cancer survivor. And this current doctor understood that. She's also a breast cancer survivor. So it was really nice to be able to talk to someone who gets it from that perspective, and who understood my concerns without trying to make me feel bad for having those concerns, which, yeah. Anyway, my point in sharing that little tidbit is it's really important, when possible, to find a doctor that you feel really good about talking to. And I know that that's not always easy. And I feel very fortunate to have hopefully found one that feels good. Anyway, I say that because I know it's not always possible, depending where you live and what insurance you have and stuff like that. So I was just grateful that this particular doctor was covered in my plan. Anyway, we'll see what happens with that. I mean, I don't know. I'm staying curious, and continuing to stay curious, I guess. Curious and compassionate, friends. Those are the two C's. All right. So, why does all of this matter? At the end of the day, this isn't just about weight, all right? It's about self-trust. When you keep showing up despite the frustration, with the frustration, okay, you're proving to yourself, I'm someone who doesn't quit on me. It's the difference between thinking, if it's not working, I'll just stop, versus, even if it's not working right now, I'm still worth the effort. Okay? You're always worth the effort. And my client's little plateau moment that I shared, that's the shift in action. She's building the kind of resilience that will serve her in every area of life. That is why this coaching is so powerful, okay? We focus on food and body confidence, on overcoming emotional eating and learning to accept and feel comfortable in your skin and all that stuff, but it absolutely impacts every area of your life. That's why this is so powerful, right? And here's an invitation for you. What I would like to invite you to do this week, okay? What is one thing that you feel frustrated about? Maybe it is your weight journey. I don't know. Could be anything, right? Name it. Name your frustration. And then ask yourself, what's another way to see this? And then, this is really important, write down 3 wins that you can celebrate right now. And listen, if you can only think of one, that is fine. Okay. Maybe think of one right now and then kind of go about your day and notice when another one pops up. Okay. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes if we can't think of 3 right away, just think of one. You'll think of one and then another one will come and then another one will come, right? Write them down as you think of them. Okay. That can be super powerful. And here are some examples. Okay. So I'll share for you for my wins this week, right? Number 1, I showed up to record this episode. Okay. Because there were some moments where I was like, oh, right? Because I'm feeling it. But I showed up and I recorded it. Number 2, booked that hormone panel with my doctor. Excited to see the results. Number 3, I've been consistent with my water and my sleep, right? These are all wins. And listen, I'm still 20 pounds up today, all right? But I'm also still showing up. And that matters so much more than the number. It really does, okay? Frustration doesn't have to be the end of the story. Sometimes it's the exact thing that grows you the most. I mean, I look at it this way. Frustration is what helped me come up with this episode, which I think has been incredibly powerful, right? When you can find a new way to look at frustration and actually allow it to ride along with you in the passenger seat, okay? And not have it completely sabotage. That's pretty powerful. And listen, the next time the scale doesn't move for you, remember, the scale can't measure persistence. And persistence is what's going to win this. All right? So I hope you have a great week. Until next time. See ya! Are you ready to break free from stress eating and body shaming? It's time to get fierce. Fat to Fierce is a self-paced program that helps you build a new foundation of strength and balance without the toxic dieting mindset. This non-diet approach focuses on mindful eating, body acceptance, and lasting transformation. It's time to reclaim your power and find peace with food, your body, and yourself. Visit amyenglishcc.com to get started today.